There was a national school walkout yesterday over the issue of mass shootings. Let's take a look at a quick video about it from The Guardian.
When I say gun, you say laws. Gun, laws, gun, laws.
We want change! We want change! We want change!
We want a bump stock ban. We want assault weapons bans in all states. We want our Congress people to stop taking money from the NRA. And finally, and most importantly, we want the background checks to be reinforced. We want more background checks. We want it to be really hard to get a gun.
I hope that the president will step up, stop accepting money from the NRA, because if all the deaths that have occurred aren't enough to convince him, then I guess it just has to be us protesting right now.
We're turning our backs against the people who won't stand up for us, and we're hoping that that will get their attention and they will start to represent what we're fighting for.
I want to put it out there, this is not liberal versus conservative. It's not you versus me. It's not anything, really. It's us against school shooters. It's us against gun violence. Whenever you walked out today for gun control or mental health awareness, walk out for it. Take a stand. This is a revolution. Don't sleep through it.
We are here to honor those lives lost. They could have been great. They could have achieved so much greatness in the world, but no, their lives are lost because we are not protecting people. We are protecting guns.
So, like it said there at the beginning, 3,000 schools took part in this. And I think my favorite part was when they were interviewing that guy and he said, "Hey, look, here's what we're in the streets for." And he gave a clear list. And there's nothing I like more than when somebody's asked a question about something and they could just give you the most straightforward answer imaginable. Because oftentimes in various protests, and it doesn't just happen on the right, although it happens on the right, sometimes it happens on the left too, where you ask people, "Hey, what are you in favor of?" And they're like, and they can't really give you a good answer. Well, he gave us a really good answer. He said bump stock ban, assault weapons ban, no NRA money, and background checks. You could agree or disagree with the guy, but he's super clear. Hey, here's what I'm in favor of. And I think he might agree with that kid, but no NRA money. Well, the real answer is get all the money out of politics. So not only is the NRA not buying our politicians, but also Goldman Sachs isn't buying our politicians. Humana and health insurance companies, for-profit health insurance companies aren't buying our politicians. And the list goes on and on of the various special interests. ExxonMobil not buying our politicians. We want to make it so that Big Pharma, Wall Street, for-profit health insurance companies, the military-industrial complex, none of them should be buying our politicians. Because as of right now, that's why we get the legislation we get. Is because there's so much private money, big money in politics, and that sways the vote across the board. That's why we have 97% of the American people in favor of universal background checks, but we don't get them. Because what's happening is the NRA is getting money from gun makers, and they give it to the Republican politicians, and the Republicans know there's strings attached to that money, and you can't vote for any gun reform no matter how reasonable it is. And that, by the way, that even goes against the wishes of the NRA members, because NRA members say we want a universal background check, for example. So the NRA members are not unreasonable people. It's just the leadership of the NRA that's really the problem. So I love this. I love seeing people get involved in democracy. Bernie was at one of these events and he gave a speech and he looked like he was bigger than the Beatles out there. He walked through a crowd of students and they were screaming his name and, talking about 2020, and it was an amazing video to watch. I mean, it really made me feel good seeing how, our generation loves Bernie, but it looks like the next generation loves Bernie just as much, if not more, than we love Bernie. So that shows that these ideas, these social democratic ideas are, taking root. And I think that's an absolutely wonderful thing. And then this also made me realize, listen, if enough of this is done, shit changes. That's the reality. I mean, I know that, in many ways I'm super pessimistic about the way things are going because, like I described, big money controls our politicians and it feels like the U.S. empire will never unwind. But the reality is, if you asked somebody in Mississippi in 1959, hey, do you think we're going to have segregation forever? They would have said yes. And they would have been wrong. If you asked women when they were starting to fight for their right to vote, hey, do you think you're ever going to get the right to vote? They would have said, no, we don't think we're going to ever get the right to vote. So things seem impossible until they're done. And then when they're done, everybody turns around and goes, well, of course that was going to happen. Like, duh, we don't have Medicare for all now. But in 20 years, we might be looking back and going and saying, of course we were going to get Medicare for all at some point. Because 60% of the American people in the year 2018 wanted it. So there's power in numbers. I don't know how to phrase that with the tense at the moment. There are power in numbers. There is power in numbers. Whatever. You pick whichever one is right. And they can't deny us all. So imagine these school kids get even more involved in politics, and imagine we do a general strike. A general strike where we all say, hey, nobody's going to work until the government meets these demands of ours. And, we could say on that list, Medicare for all, free college, living wage, end the wars, New Deal, action on climate change. There's a lot. I mean, if we all got together and organized, yes, we can make a real difference, man. And wouldn't it be something if we made the government afraid of us? Because that's the old saying, I think Michael Moore pointed this out, that in France, the government is scared of the people. In the U.S., the people are scared of the government. We need to flip that dynamic and let them know, hey, you work for us. I don't care what you think or what your take on it is. You're just wrong. You work for us. End of story. So we're going to ban you from taking private money from your donors. We're going to pass clean elections by law. We can really get some shit to change, man. But it requires exactly what you're seeing there. It's hard work. Nothing's easy. Nothing that was ever worth it is just fucking easy. It's always going to be a pain in the ass. It's always going to be difficult. And, we can all win. We can win in the long run if we put in the time and the effort and we organize and we have direction and a clear purpose.